Okay, finally, guys. Many false starts. Today, episode 34 of the Drew Pavlis Show, The Fortress of Righteousness. We've got some beautiful new artwork here. Stone Orthodox, Greek Orthodox icons. We've got Saint George, the protector, and the archangels Michael and Gabriel, and they're protecting us, and they're helping us on this quest to build the most beautiful show in the entire world. And I really like the new setup. It looks very good, very good. I spent my first month of YouTube paycheck on this new setup. It looks great, and I'm going to be working hard. I'm very sorry that it took so long to work out the stream tonight, guys. Just kept on messing up. I was trying to use Streamlabs, and I don't know what the problem is. I think maybe it's just my computer, but it just looks like terrible when I'm streaming from Streamlabs. I don't know why. I think maybe my computer's just maybe too old to use Streamlabs. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think maybe my laptop's too old. Drew, I wonder if your girlfriend happens to be Greek. My girlfriend's not Greek. But I don't comment much about my personal life, guys, because I've got the ISIS guys who want to kill me, the jihadists who want to kill me, the communists and the Nazis. It's not good to talk about my personal life because I don't want to get people in trouble. But I appreciate your comments, Yusuf. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, guys, what are your thoughts today? How was your day today? Yeah, again, I'm sorry that it took so long to get the stream up today. It wasn't working. I think it was just, I think just potentially my computer is maybe too old to use Streamlabs effectively. When I tried to make it work, it just doesn't really work. Hey, Drew, what's the plan for tonight? Got a guest on. You shouldn't divulge anything about your personal life. I agree. Thank you, Max Hooper. Look, no big guests tonight. I'm thinking tonight to watch through this debate between Ethan Klein and Sam Seder. And Sam Seder is like a left-wing critic of the abundance whole thing. I thought I'd watch it on the stream. Let me know, guys, what are your thoughts at the moment? What did you get up to today? It's 9 p.m. here in Australia. I'm just really frustrated. I was trying to get the stream to work on Streamlabs, and it's just unfortunate. I think my computer just breaks down a bit under the stream. It was just buffering a lot, and it just looked pretty terrible. I love this new setup we've got. I bought this today at the Greek Panegyri. I went to the beautiful Greek Panegyri, the Greek festival. Malaki asked me how was the Greek festival. It was beautiful. Look how nice this is. This is Saint George, the protector. He's slaying a dragon. And that gives me inspiration when I'm fighting against people like Bad and Panada. And it's just so beautiful, this stuff. The Archangel Michael, one of the protector angels, and the Archangel Gabriel. And he's potentially my favorite Archangel. And just great, because what this indicates is now the stream will be protected. When we face down the jihadists and the communists and the Nazis, the stream will be protected. And I want to ask you guys, what do you think of the new setup? I think it looks really beautiful. I think we're doing really good stuff. But I don't know. I really want to get the chat on the screen. It just doesn't work though. It just doesn't work, and it's very frustrating. Very frustrating. I try use Streamlabs, and just unfortunately, using Streamlabs, I think it's not working on my computer. But let's watch some of this. I think it's quite funny. I think Sam Seder kind of clowned himself. He's just kind of like a lefty commentator. And these guys don't even really have an explanation as to why they don't like the whole abundance agenda outlined by Ethan Klein. There's literally no reason. They're just complaining because they don't like anything to do with liberalism or, market. They just don't like technocracy. And these guys are just miserable. Just got back from a mate's house, barbecued some steaks, logging on to do some work. Good stuff. Yeah, no, I love some steak, mate. Good stuff.
You drink wine?
Did anyone else go to the Panegyri? It is such a nice place, and the food is just exquisite. The food's exquisite. We had some honey puffs today. It was a great day. Great day.
Fine.
Let me know, by the way, guys, is the audio working for the Ezra Klein podcast with Sam Seder?
I do. For a long time, I had absolutely no idea what to do when I went into a wine store. Then my sister worked for a vineyard in Italy for years ago. And then I knew about what to do about one wine. But this is 2025. And you no longer have to worry about what you're going to do when you go into a wine store, or that your sister may or may not work in the wine business. Naked Wines is a service.
Microphone sounds better than the other stream. Yeah, dude. See, I was trying to set up on Streamlabs, and long term, I definitely wanted to go on Streamlabs because, that's what most of the big streamers use. But I think it just was not working on my computer. I think my computer can't run it. Like, I was trying to run some overlays on it too, and just the mic was sounding shit, and the didn't look nice. They don't like abundance liberalism as they view it as neoliberalism 2.0. Yeah, it's such a clownish belief though that this has nothing to do with neoliberalism at all though. It's literally so different because, I mean, he's actually talking about building state capacity. Like, if neoliberalism is all about, sidelining the state in favor of the market, like Ezra Klein wants to build state capacity. He's trying to build state capacity. It's like almost like a social democratic vision. And yeah, these guys are just miserable. They just want everybody to be sad all the time. It's depressing, isn't it? How much should Sydney University do to curb the anti-Semitic radicals? Oh, they certainly have to do more. They turned their backs on some Jewish speakers at the University of Sydney the other day. It was very mentally ill, very strange. Let's watch Sam Seder.
That directly connects you to the world's finest independent winemakers, so you can get award-winning wine delivered directly to your door. If you use our code majority for the code and the password at nakedwines.com, you're going to get an incredible deal of 6 bottles for just $39.99. How do they do it? Naked Wines connects winemakers and wine drinkers directly. My sister, having been in that business, told me the incredible markups. And there's like 4 different people, 4 different entities between you and the winemaker. But with Naked Wines, you can get wines coming directly from the vineyard to your door delivery at up to 60% off.
Ezra Klein, not Ethan Klein. Oh my God, did I make that mistake? I'm sorry, guys. Ezra Klein, obviously. 1.5 speed for Sam. Yeah, no, honestly, let's put it on 1.5 speed. It's fucking torture. And just listening.
Naked Wines has been around for over 15 years. They sold free. I don't know. Dry January doesn't mean you can't enjoy Naked Wines before or after.
Sam Seder can be reasonable at times. I went off him a bit for a while. Abundance liberalism sounds gay. There's nothing wrong with abundance, my friends. He's literally doing an ad. Yeah, I know. How do you distinguish Klein's book from Flavor of the Month wonk slop like Iglesias' 1 billion Americans? I think it's very different. Someone says this is just as bad as the Mia Khalifa thing. No, it's not. We've never plunged to those depths. We never plunged to those depths on this stream once ever again. The Drew Pablo show is actually beautiful. It's righteous. We've got the beautiful icons from the Greek Orthodox Church. Captions on and then talk over him. Yeah,
facts. Dry January, actually, or the dry week that you have, or whatever.
I hate this guy. Who are these 2 guys? Well, Sam Seder's just retarded. Ezra Klein's pretty smart, intellectual, liberal guy. I mean, Surf Shepherd says, how do you distinguish this from 1 billion Americans? Listen, I don't agree with Ezra Klein when he previously was saying, he supported open borders. I don't agree with that, obviously. I'm just talking about, stuff to make permitting easier so you can build more houses. I mean, how can anybody be against that? Unless you're somebody who wants everybody to be miserable. Oh my God, now my camera's out. I think we're just cursed today, maybe, guys. It's so unfortunate. Gee, hang on. My camera should be back on in a second. Yeah, okay, we got it fixed up. I was here when the Mia Khalifa moment happened, and it was phenomenal. Some of you guys were there when it happened. Some of you were there when it was happening. It was a very strange moment. I'm not proud of it. I was very sad about it, actually. In fact, it was a disgraceful time, and that's why we've cleansed the stream with some beautiful Orthodox. I was there. Corey Pelsman say that's very funny. Just checking, is Sam Seder Jewish? He's like an anti-Zionist Jewish guy.
The Sarah is pretty hard. Now is the time to join Naked Wines.
Oh my God, how many fucking ads can you do, man? Oh my God, boring. Okay, let's get into the fucking meat and substance of it all.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred. We must guard
Comedian, put something funny on because it's Saturday night. Comedian Tim Dillon. Should I literally just put on Tim Dillon? He's pretty fucking funny. Sam Seder is a non-Zionist. He doesn't say he is or not. Nah, dude, it's pretty obvious that Sam Seder is anti-Zionist. Well, look, we'll watch at least a little bit of this. If it gets fucking boring, I'm going to put on Tim Dillon because I do think Tim Dillon's funny. If it gets fucking torturous, I'm literally going to take that off. Belle, what are you doing? Belle's destroying her playpen. Come on, Belle. Come on, Belle. The mic doesn't really exist. His son told Ethan he was an anti-Zionist, which Sam refuted. Did he really refute it? I mean, it's pretty obvious that he's anti-Zionist. A Catholic guy on X wants to debate you on the filio. Came in. Someone should poop on banana bananas. Well said. Can you put your camera top left? Okay, I'll do that. Hang on 1 second. Okay. Okay, I've changed the camera. Chuck the National Socialist Network documentary on. That's not happening. That's not happening. All right, we'll watch it a bit.
It is Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, New York Times columnist, host of the podcast The Ezra Klein Show, co-author of the new book Abundance, Ezra Klein will be here. Also on the program today, Trump in the Middle East pushing an enlarged Abraham Accord. Meanwhile, taking a little more grief for that, what turns out to be not totally free $400 million jet. Trump reportedly reversed on China tariffs because it was going to crush his own voters. Meanwhile, RFK Jr., fresh out of swimming in feces, testifies in Congress to defend his health and human services cuts. Republicans out in the open about Medicaid cuts for wealthy tax cuts.
All right, get to Ethan Klein, please, mate.
Trump's ability to unilaterally revoke tax-exempt status.
Ezra seemed to be making good points. Yeah, he destroyed Sam Seder here.
Secretary Sean Duffy, instead of fixing the problems at Newark, changed his wife's flight to avoid flying in and out of that airport. Wisconsin judge indicted by the DOJ for supposedly obstructing ICE's attempt to arrest an immigrant. EPA to weaken rule curbing forever chemicals in water because, of course. And Uruguay's Jose Mujica, did I pronounce that right?
Yes, they also call him Pepe.
Pepe, the world's poorest president, has died. All this.
Another educational thing you can put on is the movement about DLP ratting the tank. Is that a documentary, Max? That actually would be way more interesting to me. There's also an excellent Stan documentary called True Believers about Curtin Chifley. Actually does sound interesting. True Believers, Curtin Chifley, Stan. The movement by DLP, is that a documentary? I'll actually love to watch that. That'd be interesting, actually.
And more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, the Uruguayan president died. That's sad, actually.
Mujica, did I pronounce that right?
Yes, they also call him Pepe.
Pepe, the world's poorest president, has died. All
Oh, that's really sad.
and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. Emma is off today. It is, however, still officially Hump Day. Got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, Max, send me the documentary on the movement. I'll actually watch that.
Next story right now, of course, is going to be what Donald Trump ends up doing in the Middle East in terms of, based upon the conversation we had yesterday with Jeremy Scahill. If
Biden's liberalism will really excite the working class in the Midwest. Well, that's facts.
I don't know, profits lead to helping Palestinians in Gaza survive, essentially, this food, water, energy embargo, medicine embargo that Israel has levied against it for over 2 months. Its intention to occupy and continue to bomb Palestinians in Gaza. We'll see if that if Donald Trump's profit incentive in any way sort of butts up against that agenda and where it takes us. We shall see. Meanwhile, papers all over the place here. Winding its way through the Republican caucus in the House is the One Big Beautiful Bill. Just a reminder, it is a reconciliation bill. There was a resolution that was passed a couple of months ago now that basically did the broad outlines of what the bill was going to be. The key for the Republicans is they're going to do it through reconciliation, which is the only way they can. They must make it budget neutral. So the tax cuts they want to extend for Donald Trump, they're going to attempt in the Senate to pretend that the baseline is not what the revenue would be when the current legislation expires at the end of this year.
Hello,
that it's not expiring, and that is the new baseline. So they have more room to perform more tax cuts. In the meantime, either way, they know they're going to have to cut the budget to make room for those tax cuts. And in that budget resolution at the beginning of the year, they basically tasked the Energy and Commerce Committee with finding $800 billion of cuts. And their biggest pool of money is Medicaid. So we already know that what's winding through in this bill are going to be massive cuts to Medicaid, significant cuts to SNAP, what we used to call food stamps. Particularly, it's going to put huge burdens on people who are over the age of 54, between 54 and 64, to get food stamps. Also, in the event of a financial crisis, some type of stress in the economy, states will not have the ability to easily provide food assistance to their citizens who may need it in a sort of a quasi-emergency situation. Today in the Energy and Commerce, I should say yesterday, sorry, the Debt Collective protested the Energy and Commerce reconciliation markup when they basically are going through their portion of what ultimately will be part of this big reconciliation bill.
I'm just literally going to go to the part where there's a one.
Columnist, host of the...
Okay, we'll watch.
We're back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vinglin out today. It's a pleasure to welcome my back, I guess. I mean, maybe it was years and years ago.
Been a minute.
Ezra Klein, New York Times columnist, host of the podcast, The Ezra Klein Show, also co-author of the new book, Abundance. Ezra, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we should say just a little bit of backstory. You guys have reached out to us. Our efficiency is quotient not particularly high, so you were on the Iglesias' show, I guess the Slow Boring podcast, and mentioned that we hadn't responded. So we wanted to have you on to talk about the book. We had Paul Glastis on from Washington Monthly, your old haunt,
Right, intern. Love Paul.
with a critique that was, I think, like a middling critique. Some of the proposals that were brought up in the book. But let's just start with you outlining, like, what thematically, what is the book about?
The book is about a very simple question, which is, what do we need more of and how do we get it? And then the parts of the book that I think have aroused more controversy, critique, energy, conversation, is that much of the book is exploring the question of why in the places Democrats govern, or in the times when Democrats govern, are liberals, are Democrats, are in some cases people on the left, unable to produce more of the things we need. Why is there so little housing in California and New York? Sam, where are you? Just so I have you.
In New York.
You're in New York. So why in places like New York and California and Illinois, where you have a lot of Democratic control, have become very unaffordable? Why is it very hard to cite enough clean energy, even though that's become a major project for the Democratic Party? Why is so much that we do so goddamn slow? Medicare released its Medicare cards a year after it passed into law. Getting prescription drug prices negotiated on 10 drugs took 3 years and will only go into effect this year, just in time for Donald Trump to take advantage of it and brag that it was him who did it. So this question of the sclerosis of liberal government, how do we actually make it deliver the things it is promising to deliver, is the core inquiry of the book.
And the culprits run across I guess like four sort of main silos, as far as I can tell. Like we have the regulation and bureaucratic red tape, and this is a problem both in terms of like building infrastructure and to some extent within the context of housing. There are that housing is also addressed.
That's
by,
true, Max. It'd be so impossible.
Local, I guess, incumbent groups that have power there. The infrastructure, again, some of that bureaucratic process is a function, and we'll get into this, is a function of environmental regulations that end up getting abused in some fashion. And then in the context of like of science and innovation, it is a sort of a risk-averse funding. But before we go into some of the specifics, from your perspective, because I've been reading a lot of there's a lot of reviews of the book out there. It's also,
have you read the book?
I have. Well, I've listened to the book.
That's as good.
He's listening to the book, audiobook.
I like your read better than Tarek's. Okay, but I've listened to the book.
All right, if you that gives you a sense of what level we're talking.
That's a different critique. But yes, I have read the book, and I've also read there's a tremendous amount of reviews about the book.
What is your critique of the book? I want to answer your critique of the book.
Well, I will get to that. Okay. I will get to that. But from your perspective, is this a policy or a political book?
Oh, I don't think you can separate those two.
Okay,
I mean, so you know my career. I'm a policy reporter from way back, but I think something that has always been central to the way I understand that is policy, politics, and process. And I think this is very...
I worked on the California high-speed rail project for Arab for a couple of months in 2009 after Airport Link finished. They still haven't built a mile of it. Bloody hell, Max. I didn't know you worked on California high-speed rail. It's a disaster. They still haven't done anything. It's such a disaster.
Very much a book about process and proceduralism are all intertwined. The idea that you can peel them apart, that you can say, oh, this bucket is policy, this bucket is politics, is not at all how I look at that question.
Yeah, and I guess, we'll start with the policy side first. But broadly, my critique is there seems to be an absence of, well, I think the culprits that you have chosen in some instances are correct, but broadly speaking, there's an absence of analysis of power dynamics. I think that the interplay of money.
So, like, this is what the left is angry about when it comes to abundance. Like they are upset that it doesn't just straight up say Billionaires bad. Billionaires bad. They're mad that Ezra Klein won't say behead the billionaires. Like that's what they're angry about, because it doesn't have a political enemy for them to destroy. It's too wonkish. They're talking about, you know, making it easier to build houses. That doesn't allow them sell. It doesn't allow the communists to feel nice about purging people and fucking beheading people, and that's why abundance is bad. Didn't Elon try to kill the California high-speed rail a few years ago with that Hyperloop scam he was running? Hyperloop was a massive scam.
Money in politics, or I should say power in our society, I think is problematic.
I'm glad to follow you since 2 months ago on X. I'm sorry for Ukraine. I love Ukraine from Thailand. I'm studying political and international relations. It made me realize about Ukraine history. That's good, man. I'm glad. Thank you for following me from Thailand. It sounds really cool. Thank you, man. It's good that we got a bit of an international win. So I appreciate that, Crub.
I mean, I think that, like, look, there have been, questions about specific policies and assumptions. I've read critiques about your assessment of why China is able to do certain things and whatnot. But and I also think the power questions really filter through a lot of what you perceive to be problematic. And then I think,
do you stream anywhere else? X is a dog shit streaming experience. Yeah, dude, I'm on YouTube right now. Go to my YouTube, because that's where I'm actually trying to build up my that's where I'm trying to build up my main audience, actually. So yeah, guys, if you're watching on Twitter, I really recommend you go to my YouTube, because yeah, it's a bit hard to fucking watch live streaming on YouTube. On Twitter, sorry. Yeah, no, please go across. Peter says hello from Sweden. Thank you. It's cool. Oh my god, it's awesome that we've got people from all around the world. We've got people from Thailand, people from America watching, people from Canada, people from Sweden. Yeah, guys, if you're watching on X, I've just posted the YouTube link in the comments, and I would really recommend you go to the YouTube link. It's a lot easier to watch. Streaming live on the Ezra Klein v. Sam Seder fight. Oh, yes, this is much better. Yeah, it's so much better on YouTube. Seriously. I really recommend anybody watching on Twitter go across to my YouTube and subscribe once you're there. When you go to my YouTube, subscribe once you're there. It's very important. From Belgium. Damn, awesome. 8 p.m. in South Korea. See your changed optics. Works well now. Thank you, Jens. Thank you, man. That's great. Damn, it's cool. We got Thailand, Korea, Sweden, Belgium, America, Australia. Great. We've only got about 20 people watching live on YouTube, but it's already a very international audience. Very cool. Very cool.
Broadly, I think it's also...
I'm sorry, guys. I was low energy in the first 10 minutes of the show because I was a bit depressed that Streamlabs wasn't working, but I'm now high energy again. I'm going to build myself up again.
So difficult to understand, like, how this is going to function as a political question. But we will get to all of that.
We'll do the second in a minute.
But let's do the policy.
Let me talk about power. I have been interested to see this critique develop. And I just had Zephyr teach out on my show. There's an episode with her and Shrikat Chakrabarti called Abundance on the Left that I think people would be interested to hear sort of do the power debate at some length. I think this has been very revealing to me about what my friends on the left, and I think of myself usually as on the left, though, liberal, not a leftist, I guess, mean when they say power. I think this is a book entirely about power. But it is a book that treats power highly situationally. So there is a structure of power that arranges itself around, say, a housing development in San Francisco. That is a different structure of power than arranges itself around the question of can you build interstate transmission lines, which is a different structure of power than arranges itself around the question of can you site rural broadband and build that in the way that you want to, which is a different structure of power than you see in a bunch of the other cases in the book. And one thing we are attempting to do over and over and over again is get extremely granular about what is happening. So one thing that bothers me about the power analysis that I hear on the left, let's take housing, because I always think it's very important to ground things in like a specific case. Texas builds more housing than California. It builds more housing than New York. When people move to Austin and Houston and Dallas, they build homes. When people move to San Jose and San Francisco and Los Angeles, they don't. Is your view, do you find it a credible view to say that the issue is Texas has solved the corporate power problem, but California is permeable to corporate power and dominated by oligarchy in a way that Texas, or for that matter, Florida, is not?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily, I think it's not necessarily corporate power. I think what we're talking
Yeah, dude, this is actually brutal. Sam Seder literally has no idea what he's talking about.
Is money. I think we're just talking about money.
So
and
Texas has solved the money in politics problem, but California is not.
Well, I can tell you that, like, if you want to compare, let's say, San Francisco.
Wow, Texas is so progressive, guys.
Go to Houston, right? You just have a lot more space in Houston. You have a lot more money.
A lot more space in Houston. This is clown shit, eh? He doesn't even have any idea what he's talking about. I dislike Sam because he's a cultist leftist, and I dislike Ezra because he's an evil NYT operative. No, I like Ezra. I don't like dislike. I dislike Sam. Dislike Sam. I like Ezra. I feel stupid listening to this. Dude, there's just got a lot of space in Houston. It's actually fucking clown shit.
In San Francisco. And so the power that rests with the money is more concentrated literally, right? And has the ability in those instances to stop this housing project or that housing project. Like, look at Austin, for instance. You bring up Austin. In the course of Austin, and this was, I read this in the review, because obviously I'm not studying Austin or San Francisco for that matter. But Joe Wiesenthal wrote, that his observation about Austin was that it was cheap, and then it got very expensive. Then there was, and it was a function of costs went up, rents went up. It became expensive there.
Rents have gone down in Austin because they built so much.
They built so much.
I want to hold on what you said.
He's good enough.
There was no change. There was no change in the building codes, for instance. Like the argument that
the building code responded in Austin. So you can just go look. I mean, I don't know if you guys are going to down on the show and show it, but just go pull it up if we can. You can search Fred housing starts in Austin and San Francisco. You could just do this in general. You can look at this analysis across blue and red cities. But
what
the difference? Let me just. I want to.
Honestly, Ezra's fucking destroying him here.
Go through this example, but we can go through a bunch of them. Houston doesn't have a zoning code. That's why it's easier to build there. I mean, I was talking to a developer there, and he said, look, the thing everybody knows about Houston, if you're a developer, is it's a bad place to be a homeowner. It's a good place to be a developer. And this is what I mean when I say the whole book in a way is about power. That in these procedural questions, in this question of how do you get housing approved, what we have created in many blue cities is a lot of veto points. And that veto point can be used by corporate power. It can be used by moneyed interests. It can be used by local homeowners who are not power in the way we would normally think of them, but sure as hell are power when you're thinking about whether or not to build housing. It can be used by all sorts of players. And so I think that one of the places where I quite diverge from some of my other friends on this is that I think when you create this level of proceduralism, this level of veto points, they get captured by interest over time. And that is a place where power can pool. Now, I think the place where I probably part, just to finish the thought, I think the place where I probably part is that I think that the left is often very attentive to power when it is coming from certain recognized villains, and much less attentive to power when it is coming from people who might in other contexts look like allies or just be local homeowners. But that can also be real power wielded in a problematic way.
Well, but you listed off three entities that have power: corporate power, moneyed interests, and homeowners. And I would suggest to you that in all three of those that you just listed, that money is ultimately the controlling factor. So for instance, I can tell you, like, I don't know San Francisco. I don't know Austin. I know Worcester, Mass.
How's it? This is fucking stupid. Where's the analysis here? Money. He's just like, it's just money. There's no fucking analysis at all.
And I can tell you that during urban renewal, we had, there was an entire neighborhood that was completely, I don't know if you've ever been to Worcester, had gone through 290. There was an entire neighborhood called Laurel Clayton, I think it was, that ended up dumping people into a housing project, Plumley Village. And it was all run by the Worcester Redevelopment Authority. It was completely streamlined. None of the other, what we would call today groups. There was no equity involved in this, or equitable justice or anything like this. And the neighborhood was completely destroyed because the input only essentially.
The seer of money, big thinker. If rich, then stop house being built because of magic. Like that's literally what Sam Seed is arguing here. It's such a clown shit. Biggest problem is work activist councils focus on work should accept building roads. I mean, councils can be part of the problem, sadly. Money bad, I get it. I now have the solution to homelessness. Isn't it amazing, guys? If you just realize money's bad, then suddenly you can start building houses. It's fucking amazing, isn't it? Money bad. Oh, okay. That now we can build homes. Okay.
It came from this big insurance company and the Worcester Redevelopment Authority, which was essentially owned by the same type of people. And I only know about this because a buddy of mine was homeless in high school because of how much destruction generationally it had created as a result of that. And so when you list off those three elements of power, in my mind, those are all moneyed interests. Those local homeowners, I'm sure there are stories of low-income people who own homes in an area that hasn't been redeveloped, is able to stop building. But I would imagine those are very far and few between.
And I think we should be in agreement, right? If this is the case you're making, then I think we should be in agreement because there's no doubt that
I'm saying it's moneyed interest.
It's sometimes money interest for sure, right?
Well, what is it? Let
me finish the thought, okay. and then you can give me your rebuttal. When you create these highly legalistic systems, the people with the money to hire lawyers and lobbyists are going to be more capable within them. And so the structure of a society that begins to bury so much in bureaucracy where you have to know when to show up to the planning meeting and you have to know who the city council members are, like it begins to structurally favor those who can navigate that society. So when we talk about things like upzoning, where we want to make it possible to build more houses in an area, like everybody knows it is almost impossible to upzone a rich area. And that is because they're able to bend this process to their will. Now, you can take a place like California.
Let me address that. I mean, I get that point there. And I think that is what worries, I don't know about other people, but that's the type of thing that worries me, because the argument you just made is almost identical to the one that I would have every week with Tim Carney, who I know, back in the day, which is an idea that the problem with wealthy influence, and if you and I agree, then it is money. The problem with it is we don't
agree that it's all money.
Okay,
money is one mechanism of influence.
But I think it is the biggest one. Would you agree with that?
It depends on the issue. So look,
I'm saying across-
Sam Seder is just like money bad. That's the extent of his fucking intellectual thought. Don't forget to like the stream to boost the algorithm. Well said, Peter. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, you have to like the stream to help boost it in the algorithm. Please, don't forget it. Just like the stream. It's very easy. Make sure to like the stream. Make sure you like the stream. Spam the comments. Help us reach more people in the algorithm.
There are a bunch of these issues.
Okay, but let me finish my point about Tim Carney. He would say that you need to have less government. That way it cannot be as corrupted or manipulated by moneyed interest. Now, I don't know if you think that money is the problem 51% of the time or 30% of the time.
I don't think categorically asking that question is, but here, let me say where I disagree with Tim Carney, because maybe it'll clarify where maybe you and I don't agree. Tim wants a less capable state. I want a more capable state. Tim wants a state that does fewer things.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, Ezra Klein wants to build state capacity. That's where this differs from traditional neoliberal economics. He's trying to build state capacity. And this is what Sam Seder and co can't even see.
I want a state capable of doing more things, including the things it has already promised to do. So when I look at California high-speed rail, I work backwards and I say, what the fuck happened that the state of California could not build high-speed rail, which they can do in Japan, they can do in China, they can do in Europe. Tim looks at it and says they shouldn't be trying to build high-speed rail. And so the disagreement I have with Doge, with a lot of different things, with a lot of my friends on the right.
Comment by Eduardo, love you, Drew. Thank you, Eduardo. Eli, random comment. Quiet still. I also don't like immigrants like you, Drew. That's a very simplistic take on my fucking stance. I'm not anti-immigrant per se. I just think that it needs to be lowered, the current numbers, because we cannot absorb it in the society with economics and social cohesion.
Right, is they want to reduce state capacity. I come at this as a liberal who wants the state to accomplish very difficult things: decarbonizing the economy, building enough affordable housing, including, by the way, public housing, building mass public infrastructure, things like high-speed rail or the Big Dig or the Second Avenue subway here in New York City. And what I see is a state failing to accomplish its goals. Right. Now, they would say, don't fucking try. I would say fix the state. And one issue with the state is that it has become so highly regulated, not in terms, I find that when I use the term deregulation, like people's brains turn off because they think of deregulation as something that the state does for the market. But no player is more highly regulated than the state itself, often by Republicans, often because of power in the way that you would define it. But I think a lot of liberals, a lot of leftists have, one, and this is my critique going backwards, ceased to see this. But two, they don't take state failure seriously. And when something like California high-speed rail happens or rural broadband, they sort of move on instead of saying, why are we not delivering? We are the people who believe in government. People are pissed at government for a reason. How do we make...
Might be random, but it's true. This is the way YouTube works. Yeah. Dude, the algorithm, we need you guys to spam the comments. We need you guys to like the video. Help us reach more people. This is how YouTube works.
Government deliver.
See, and I think and I think in terms of results, I think you and I are largely aligned. But I think the problem is, and you bring up Doge, and it's ironic that you and Carney will approach it in a very similar way, but anticipate different outcomes. But that being aside, I mean, I think that is where, people get a little bit
but see, I don't think we're approaching it similarly. I think it's at a level of abstraction, it's similar, and then you go granular and it's not at all.
But see, this is what we're talking about. See, like, it's their policy and politics are in the same place. So we have a level of abstraction, we have a level of granular, right? And the point is the way that these two commingle, I think, becomes problematic, where these two things meet, because your identification of the primary problem, right? I mean, this is the point. Like, you don't address moneyed interest per se in the book. The primary problem is if you just do a summary of the book, primary problem has to do more with the regulation and the handcuffing the state has done of itself. But the state doesn't do it itself. Like, all of this handcuffing comes from a place, and it's either moneyed interest or it's not.
Just fail to understand anything.
I have no doubt that at different times.
This is where I think you've really oversimplified politics. I want to try to find the right example, because I think if we stay high, we just...
Back in the Great Depression, FDR got the Labor Secretary to set up a card table in town hall. People lined up. They said, here's your job. Get on with it. Here's a point. If you create it, competition quality improves massively because they want your business. The more red tape, the more expensive things get. The approval process for a basic subdivision takes over 2 years. It should take 3-4 months. Get the bulldozer going. How does it take 2 years? That's a disaster. Max, do you have insight? How does it actually take 2 years in Australia? That's ridiculous.
Are like yelling about this abstract question of money. But let's talk. We both believe in decarbonization.
I think that's really grounded.
Hold on, but let's talk about it from this perspective. We both believe in decarbonization, right? Climate change is a problem.
Yes.
And we sort of see the pathway on that is we have to build a lot of green energy to reorient our economy so you can run a modern economy on a green energy basis. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So to do that, you have to move all this energy production over renewable sources, and then you have to get the energy from where it currently is, right? A solar farm, a wind farm, a hydroelectric, project, whatever it is, and run it through transmission lines to where we plug shit into the wall and charge it. I have done a lot of coverage of this failure point because we are, to be perfectly clear about this, failing to build enough transmission lines. There is no world in which our decarbonization strategy works if we cannot increase by orders of magnitude how fast we are building transmission lines. There is money trying to build transmission lines. There is money trying to slow down the building of transmission lines. Just walking into this process and saying, where's the money, doesn't get you anywhere. Like, I have talked to the private equity figures trying to get a transmission line built. I have also talked to the green, new dealers trying to get that same transmission line built. And I've also seen the people standing in the way of it who have all their reasonable and good arguments. I don't find, when I dig into these things, that the way I can just repeatedly sort politics is, well, like, over here there's the money and the money is bad, and over here there's the not money and the not money is good. Usually there's money on both sides of it. There are sometimes unions on both sides of it. And so the structure of the book, because I hope people come from this and want to read it, the structure of the book is typically working backwards from a problem. We're not building enough housing. If we go...
Max says, I literally design major subdivisions for a living. It takes a long time because you have noisy neighbors who complain. Yeah. 2 years at least here in Cali. That's quick. Wow. Just finished Cab West, working on another 3,000 lotter in Walloon west of Ipswich. Wow. Zoning regulations is a big issue in the USA, but does Sam Seder object to the relaxation of these? I don't even know. I don't even know what his stance is, right? I don't even know what Sam Seder wants at the end of the day. I think he just wants Ezra Klein to, like, have a Mao's struggle session where Ezra Klein will say, yeah, rich people are bad. Like, I think they're upset. I think they're fundamentally upset because Ezra Klein's like, how do we build more houses? How do we make it easier to build houses? And they're like, oh, but that makes it harder for the left to, have a fucking revolution because it's going to make people less angry and upset and bitter in society. I honestly think, like, a lot of these guys on the left aren't interested in solutions. They want it to get worse because it will help them politically. They think it'll help us politically if things get worse. Therefore, Ezra Klein trying to make it easier to build a house, he's not helping. That's how they see things, I think. Sam is doing the classic leftist thing where you just critique without providing it solutions. Yeah, absolutely. I have multinational developer friends and they all hate developing in Australia. The permit approval process takes years. That's why you see the new buildings are only extremely expensive ones. Interesting. Yeah, guys, at the end of the day, they're basically angry because Ezra Klein's like, let's build more houses. Let's make the system better. And they want the system, these leftists want the system to be bad because that's their whole political purpose, right? That they have to feed off the resentment and bitterness in society. Therefore, they don't want things to get better. They don't want things to be reformed in a better direction. They want things to just get bad. That's why Sam Seder is just nitpicking and just going, oh, why aren't you complaining about billionaires? It's literally a joke. You can't develop places for middle to low income people because it's not worth it. But money in politics is a real problem, though. Of course, money in politics is a real problem. But I just don't think Sam Seder is serious about it because, like, Ezra Klein literally has a whole book on how can we build more houses? How can we, improve the capacity of the state? And all Sam Seder is saying is like, why aren't you complaining about billionaires? And it's just like, it's not serious stuff.
Granular on that, what can we learn? We're not building enough transmission lines. If we go granular, what can we learn? And I just don't think abstracting out to money tied the state's hands. If money could untie the state's hands on a lot of big building projects, all these fucking developers would do it. But it can't because the proceduralism takes on a life of its own.
I follow what you're saying, that in each case there are specifics that are different and you cannot generalize. It sounds like what you're saying.
You can generalize some, but you have to take seriously the specific issues in each case.
I have no doubt.
You generally should emerge out of the granularity.
Okay, what are the generalities? Like, this is what I'm asking.
I'm saying the default in America has become the...
By the way, guys, we've got 25 people watching on YouTube Live, I think. Got 13 likes on the video. Guys, if you're watching, please like the video. Like our stream. It'll help us reach more people. This is how the YouTube algorithm works. We need your help. Building,
particularly when the state is involved, has become too slow and expensive. We have created an architecture of policy that makes it too hard for us to achieve our goals in the real world, and for that matter, in social insurance. Say it again?
Who's the we?
It depends. You're not going to look. Here's a version of the.
Well, but I'm trying to address the point because, for instance, okay, so I don't
want to give you a better answer to who's we.
Well, but why I think this is important though is because this to me is the central question, really, about the book. Because I think, like, I can say there's some things in it I like, there's some things that I don't like, but the general point is, I think, for instance, where does the title abundance come from?
From Derek's.
This is Sam Seder just nitpicking everything. They're accelerationists. They want it to suck so they can call for violent revolution. Dude, that's literally what I think. I think Sam Seder and all these hardcore leftists, they want things to be worse because then they can call for violence and blood in the streets. I honestly think that's the problem. That's why they're not interested in Ezra Klein being like, here's 200 pages on how you can make houses more easy. Like, Ezra Klein writes a book, 200 pages. Here's how you can make it easier to build houses. And these guys are not interested because it doesn't assist their agenda of, like, bloodshed in the streets. There's no profit margin in affordable housing. only luxury homes. They lose money during the approvals and construction process. Thousands of builders are going bankrupt. They need to make it easier. Sexuality tip 69. We love you, Drew. Thank you, mate. Drew, why did Elon change his mind about Ukraine, hating Ukraine, which is different from 2022 when he still said, hold on, Ukraine? I don't know, man. He fell into a rabbit hole, online extremism. Max is right, lol. I actually agree with Max on. Yeah, look, I'm actually agreeing with Max on a lot of this, infrastructure stuff here. Drew, what do you think of the Bronze Age collapse? Very sad thing, Swindon. I still haven't looked into it properly.
Okay, we have seen an entire movement build up about abundance, correct? I mean, like there is a lot of money behind this broad notion of abundance. And Derek, I think it was on the Lex Friedman podcast, said something to the effect of, there is a fight within the Democratic Party. I don't think he used the word for the soul of the Democratic Party, but for where we're going as a political movement. And folks from the Nicholson Center have said, like, we have identified the Democratic Party as the best place to have this abundance.
I think the difference here is Seder types being all about wanting working people to have a bigger slice of the metaphorical pie versus Klein, who is talking about making the pie itself bigger. Yeah, true. I mean, like Sam Seder doesn't care about economic growth per se. He just wants to have, he just wants to smash billionaires. Whereas Ezra Klein's like, yeah, let's boost GDP growth because it'll make the position of the absolute worst off better. Rest in peace, all those brave Bronze Age soldiers. For real, they were real ones. So true, Saviourly. I think that Putin has had contact with Elon, or at least people in Putin's entourage. I honestly think, Peter, you're right. I mean, Putin, I think it actually is on the record that Elon has talked to Putin. I'm literally working on multi-use development right now, as well as another 21 lot one in Logan. Right, okay.
Agenda. And so as a political matter, they're not talking about, in that instance in the Nicholson, they're not saying like in San Francisco, we need to roll back this specific policy. This is attempting to develop a movement.
Well, I want to answer for myself here, not for Niskanen, right? So my first piece that
you were on that Lex Friedman podcast. I mean, that's
people should go listen to it. I stand by everything I said on the Lex Friedman podcast. But Derek, I believe I'd have to go back and look at what section you're quoting from. But Derek is responding to a lot of very heated left criticism of the book.
Are they basically trying to say, oh, Ezra Klein, you talked to Lex Friedman, therefore you're cancelled? Like, it's just fucking clown shit.
To be honest, neither of us were expecting. The way I wrote at least my parts of the book, to me, are extremely compatible with virtually and frankly necessary for all left goals. It's a book about affordable housing, decarbonization, state capacity. And my initial piece that leads to this book is in, I believe, 2021. And it is building off of the fact that the Biden administration is trying to do decarbonization through building a lot. And as I begin to follow that policy project, I begin to realize that we're not going to get it done under these laws. So that's, I think, one very important thing. But I want to go back to what you asked a minute ago, which is who's we? In this book, we is Democrats. This book is very focused for a very particular reason we can talk about, because it's not that the only problems in governance come from the left. They don't. My first book was all about largely about the right and polarization and asymmetric polarization. But I became very interested, having moved back to California in 2018, in why is a state governed by all these Democrats doing so badly? Why is it unaffordable? Why is it building less clean energy than Texas? Why is it not building enough housing? And part of the motivation for doing this book is there are a lot of problems Republicans, I mean, we're living through them right now. There are a lot of problems Republicans impose on the political system. But there's a sort of rigor and confrontation that I think is demanded when you look at the states where the people who, broadly speaking, agree with you are in power, and it's not working the way you want it to. You're not getting the outcomes you want to get. And so one story this book is telling is about a collision of the New Deal left, which is very, very focused on growth and building, and in many ways is very reckless with that, right? You were talking about Worcester, Massachusetts, which sounds like a story from that era.
If you're watching the YouTube stream, please consider giving us a like. I think we've got, how many likes have we got on the stream now? We've got 16 likes. Thank you, guys. We're building. If you're watching, guys, and as soon as we went from 13 likes to 16 likes, we had more people join the stream. So, guys, if you're watching, please leave a like. The stream is growing. We've got 27 people now watching. If you're watching the stream, please leave a like. It helps us reach more people. We had an extra couple likes just then, and suddenly the stream reached more people. So, guys, please help out. Help us reach more people. Give a like to the video.
But there we can give, Robert Moses is a classic story of this. We can talk about, we really do despoil like environments and poison streams, and we, run highways through marginalized communities and all the things people know. And in response to that, again, correctly, a new left arises. Ralph Nader, Rachel Carson, the entire environmental movement. And it passes all kinds of bills that are very, very, very effective and consequential in their day to restrain government's ability to act recklessly and to do things without considering and creating space for consideration of other impacts. So you have things like the National Environmental Policy Act and all these, bills and projects of that era. And then in this fucking maddening historical moment we're in, the problem becomes not that we're building too much, but we're building too little. And particularly building too little in the places where that new left was most powerful, California, New York, places like that. And so this is a confrontation with having created a very successful architecture to challenge, restrain, and sue the government that is now being used against liberal or leftist, for that matter, projects. If you would like the government to do public housing, say you think I'm in
That's a really good point. Looking into basically how the kind of like Ralph Nader type left maybe there's a role for them, a couple decades ago when there was not enough regulation at all, or, on health and safety grounds of a lot of things. But because I think Ralph Nader played a big role in, like seatbelt legislation, all that stuff. But gee, it's really been now weaponized. It's being weaponized really badly against, progressive causes. It's true. It's a bad thing. It's a bad thing.
Lib. And you just want the government to do the public housing. Great. I would like to see a lot more public housing too. The government cannot currently do public housing under the regulatory structure under which it operates. And yes, some of that is money. But it's also the fact that you can sue to stop all this stuff under the National Environmental Policy Act. It's also the fact that government, what I call everything bagel liberalism, loads huge amounts of standards and projects and goals into everything the public money touches. So in California, it costs about 2.2x per square foot to build housing as it does in Texas. Fine, market rate housing.
Guys, if you're watching the stream, click the like button. Helps us reach more people. Our likes on the video went from like 13 to 18 just then, and then suddenly we went from 20 viewers to 27. So please, guys, YouTube literally sends the video to more people as you like it. Please leave a like. It's a big help to us.
2x per square foot. If you are doing affordable housing subsidized by the government, it's more than 4x. So why are we making the government's housing for the poorest people so much harder, slower, and more costly to build? And is that in the long run good for our goals? I think it is important to confront why government, in the place where people agree with us more than the places where they don't, is not getting the outcomes we both want to see it achieve. That's what the book is about.
And I don't know how much public housing is in Texas, or how much public housing is in Texas, or if we're, and that seems to me to be a relevant question. But the notion of the everything bagel liberalism, this is the idea that we have constraints on federal money that a certain amount of union workers, or there may be a certain amount of equity associated with it. And at one point,
or contracting procurement, or a million other things, right?
And certainly, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that we could go through these bills and find things that are problematic. If they are coming necessarily from, there's two issues. One is, there was one point in the book where you talked about, we have a choice whether we're going to put filters into apartments that are built, public housing built near highways, or the people are going to live under the highway. And it seems to me that there's got to be a third.
Guys, we're almost at 30 live viewers. Thank you for the people who've liked just before. Hit the like button. We'll reach more people. Let's see if we can reach 50 people tonight.
Choice. As opposed to, we're going to poison people slowly, or we're going to keep them unhoused.
So I want to say specifically what you're talking about that section. So I'm talking to Jasmine Tong, who's an affordable housing developer, does nonprofit affordable housing. And what she is saying is that compared to market rate housing, when she is building housing for homeless people, she is subject to environmental, green building standards, et cetera, that are so far beyond what market rate housing has to do that it often makes it impossible to finance the thing entirely. And a lot of these projects, as you both know, fall apart. And I am saying there that it makes a lot of sense. You understand how people get into a conversation that we should have better than average air filtration systems in affordable housing built near a freeway, but in a city where you are not building enough affordable housing at all, because again, you have layered not just that, but a million of these onto every individual project. So again, it's costing much more per square foot than market rate housing.
Most public housing is built near the highway. Why is that?
Say again?
Most public housing.
If you fix housing, you fix 99% of the economic, social, and cultural problems in the West. That needs to be top priority. More practical builders and engineers in government, less town planners and sociologists. I actually do agree with you there, Max, that if you fix housing, you fix 99% of the economic, social, cultural problems of the West today. I think you're actually right. Every single Western country is just crushed by housing right now. And if you fix it, you actually fix probably most of the fucking resentment and anger that's building in society. Peter says I should read the book to have an actual opinion on the content. I mean, I've read half of it. I need to finish the whole thing. It's a good book. It's a good book. Also, the modern building standards are too high these days. I mean, this is an interesting point by Ezra Klein, where he basically is pointing out that it's more expensive to build homes for the poor than just random market rate housing because of the extra standards that are imposed by the government on houses for the poor. It's good to have these standards, but if it's resulting in making it harder to build housing for the poor, I mean, that's a disaster. Max says, I'm very impressed with Ezra Klein. He really has his finger on the pulse. Yeah, he's a really smart guy, honestly. He's he understands what's going on here. And Sam Seed is just going oh, but what about attacking fucking Jeff Bezos and stuff like that? It's doesn't have anything to do with what we're actually struggling with, which is, just the impossibility of building anything in the West these days. It's impossible.
Some huge percentage of public housing is built near highways.
We're not even talking. Yes, that's all. I mean, listen, we're in agreement that that's all power. But when we are talking, I am saying that we are not building enough affordable housing.
I know, but I'm saying, why are we addressing that far downstream the issue when we're completely eliding the issue that is upstream from that?
We're not completely eliding the issue. The whole fucking book, man, is about wrecking these zoning codes that allow rich people to keep it out of their areas. Okay, but if you can't build it in the first place because you can't make it affordable to build, which the people who build it will tell you, I think that I've actually found this set of arguments I've had in this really productive in a way. I don't disagree with you about power, but every time we talk about it specifically, yeah, that's a problem. But no, we actually have to solve the problem. If you want to make housing development by right, which I think you should do.
Sam Seder's like, before we build the house, we have to have a fucking struggle session about, the power dynamics in society. No, just build the house. Just fucking build the house. It's as simple as that. How hard does it have to fucking be? My God. These people are actually so unbelievably annoying, hey? I think it just really comes down to like Sam Seder wants to be obstructionist here. They want to be obstructionist because they don't want it to be easy. They don't want these things to be fixed in society because they're feeding off the resentment. I don't think the standards are too high. It's the fucking around permitting and approvals, the whole red tape. That's just overwhelming about the same simple shit. Yeah, true. Drew, when I eventually come on, we should do a deep dive on housing infrastructure. Yeah, dude, let's do it. Max, when you come on the show, we'll talk about housing and infrastructure because I know that's like your jam.
Do so that rich communities can't stop it, and the affordable, like I live on a block with public housing right now. I believe there should be public housing mixed in everywhere, but you can't build it if you cannot affordably build it. If you're gonna, in Chicago, the mayor of Chicago sent out this tweet and he said, "Hey, look at all we're doing. We built 10,000 units of affordable housing for $11 billion." People are like, you did fucking what?
10,000 units for $11 billion. That's sick. That's sick, guys. $10,000. That's US dollars as well. In Australia, there's $20 billion for like fucking 10,000 units. What the hell's going on?
Like whatever it was, it came to $1.1 million per unit. If we're going to cost $1.1 million per unit when the government builds housing for poor people, we can't build enough of it. It doesn't matter where you're building it.
I mean, I think even if I stipulate that it is exclusively zoning requirements or the everything bagel liberalism that is creating the barrier to build housing.
Can you believe that, guys? 1.1 million American dollars per home. That's unbelievable. $1.1 million American per home. And that's for like affordable housing for the poorest people in America. 1.1 million USD. That's almost, what's that in Australian dollars? That's a 1.6, $1.7 million. I mean, it's really expensive to build in Australia, but $1.7 million, like you can build a fucking mansion in Australia still. I mean, if you go a little bit out from the suburbs, gee, $1.1 million American to build affordable housing for the poorest people in Chicago. That's like just disaster. Sacrifice of the socialism gods. What is making that cost? That is like unbelievable. That's actually, dude, that actually makes me sick. Can you imagine? 1.1 million American dollars to build housing for the poorest people in society. Like, we've got it really bad in Australia. We've got it really bad with it in Australia. We've got it really bad with the housing market, but still, you can still build like a mansion for $1.7 million Australian. Like, and that's what we're talking about here: $1.7 million Australian. Modern Australian building standards are too high, not suitable for low and middle income people. It is more expensive to build at scale. Future houses must have aircon, can't use gas connections. Look, I see Dodo, but I mean, it's hard in Australia because we do get really, really scorching summers. Like, I think, you need to have allowance for air conditioning in a really, really hot country. That's what Lee Kuan Yew said in Singapore. He was like, Lee Kuan Yew basically said like air conditioning was so crucial for the development of Singapore. I mean, we've got a lot of people see air conditioning as this luxury thing, but like, it's like a building block of like kind of like stable, developed modern society these days, right? We simultaneously need to strip back the regulatory state, but massively boost its actual productive capacity to fix housing. Bring back state architects, Q-Build, Housing Commission, project services. Yeah, absolutely. This is the interesting thing, Max. Like, we've lost. Like, isn't it amazing? The state, in terms of the actual numbers of people, in terms of the numbers of people employed with the state, in the bureaucracy, the numbers have expanded so much, but the actual productive capacity of the state has just declined massively. It's actually scary. It's actually scary. It's because of town planners writing new building codes. That's like 5 times more than my flat cost to buy. Damn. And that's in Sweden. In Sweden, 5 times. Damn. That's hardcore. So we've got a comment from this guy in Sweden right now. He's living in the center of a mid-sized town with a flat. And he's saying that the 1.1 million American dollar cost for the affordable housing for the poorest people in society in Chicago, that's 5 times what it costs to buy the flat in Sweden in a mid-sized town. That's crazy. Temperature control is really important. It's like 10% of school efficiency. Yeah, dude, I think you're right there. I think most of these regulatory things need to be scaled back, but I think temperature control in a really scorching place like Australia, you do have to have that. You do have to have that. 10% of school efficiency, that's true. You don't have to put aircon in your house for yourself, but it's far less likely to rent for a good price if you don't. I mean, that is a good price. That's a good comment by Laser Master. Best industry practice construction, BIPC sense, and militant CFMEU EBA stand down rights are also killing high-rise construction. Tell us a bit more about the CFMEU stuff, Max. It's interesting.
We can.
By the way, guys, it's good. We've got 32 people watching live now on the YouTube. That's great, guys. If you can leave a like, I'd really appreciate it. We've got 20 likes now, and as our video went from 10 likes to 20 likes, we went from 15 people watching live to 30 people watching live. So YouTube literally recommends it to more people. So guys, of the 30 people watching live right now, if you can leave a like, please help us. It'll reach more people. Thank you so much.
Can look at the CHIPS Act, and that was also something that had everything big liberalism built into it, which apparently, as far as I can tell, up until Donald Trump shows up, was quite effective.
99% of the houses getting built in Australia are also all dark roof McMansions crammed next to each other. So it's not surprising we need so much aircon. That's a great point, right? We actually wouldn't need so much aircon if we didn't have like dark roof McMansions crammed next to each other. Also, another interesting thing, like I've seen, like I've read about how, bitumen can be this massive heat sink, in the suburbs, and it can just, it can raise the surrounding temperature of a suburb so much, like 4 or 5 degrees Celsius. If you just build more, if you just put in more trees, you have more foliage, and you have potentially reflective. If you paint the roads with a reflective white paint, it doesn't absorb the sunlight, and then therefore you're not creating these massive urban heat sinks out in the west of Sydney and stuff like that. I mean, some of this stuff I think is like pretty like simple stuff, and we could just really you wouldn't need so much aircon, right? CFMEU tradies get paid too much with contracts. I don't know if they get paid. It's hard, right? It's hard.
The timeline of things, definitely. Of course.
Hold. They went back and answered one of my critiques on the CHIPS Act. If you go back to that original piece, one of the things I'm saying is that they've loaded a lot in this bill, but taken nothing away. After that piece comes out, President Joe Biden signs a bill from Ted Cruz and Mark Kelly exempting the CHIPS Act from environmental review under the theory, as the administration says, that we cannot allow this to be delayed for years and years under environmental review. You can think that's bad or good, but if you want to say the CHIPS Act is going smoothly and well, it's in part because
if you paint the roof white, that's true. I do not have aircon in South Korea, hard in July, August. Yeah, dude. In the summer months, when you're in a hot country, it can get really hard. And, it actually lowers overall productivity in the society. These kind of developments at scale are the only ones that work commercially. Unfortunately, the small to medium scale infill missing middle that the town planners want don't stack up. Listen, I actually do think that we need medium density in the, inner suburbs, Max. Like, I think you do. It's hard, Max, because I am sympathetic to the idea that, we don't want to have constant urban sprawl forever, right? Like, I've read that Brisbane's almost become a 3-hour city from some parts, right? If you consider the wider greater Brisbane area from, down to the Gold Coast all the way up to the Sunshine Coast, like, you're thinking about almost like a 3-hour endless expanse of city. And if we had a bit more density, maybe we would have less urban sprawl, and then people would be less stuck in traffic all the time. Like, there's a fact that I read the other day. Brisbane is now in the top 10 worst cities in the world for traffic. It's worse than Bangkok. And I think a big part of that is urban sprawl. And I hate being in the car for hours on hours, guys. I hate being stuck in traffic. And the urban sprawl, it makes me upset. I hate it. Tom Martin says Chris Min seems pretty focused on densification in Sydney. Yeah, he is interested. It is interesting. Speaking for Sydney, it will probably be dark roof suburban sprawl all the way to fucking Uluru by 2050. Yeah, man, it's sad, man. Like from the furthest, if you go out to the furthest part of the Greater Sydney, urban conglomeration, it's like hours and hours from the city by public transport. It's actually brutal. Local resident action groups against development, usually named by the Greens. Yeah, the Greens are a big part of this problem with NIMBYism. Big part of
they talk the critique.
Well, I think there are instances, and you talk about I-95, for instance, what Shapiro was able to do.
Yeah.
The idea that, and my argument is, without that equity, you do get people living in apartments that are going to slowly kill them or give them asthma or higher asthma rates. Without that equity, you are going to destroy a neighborhood.
True, we don't have the energy capacity to have every house a new house with aircon. Adelaide already has rolling blackouts. Singapore has massive gas energy production, which is phased out in Australia. Listen, look, we need gas, we need nuclear, and I also think that we need. I think we also need to have. You can have rooftop solar, and rooftop solar can lessen a lot of the energy cost of, the aircon in summer.
And like we saw in Worcester, and like with generational impact. But I also think as a political matter, it is extremely.
I reckon if they allowed people with backyards to build granny flats with no development charges and receive the rental income tax-free, you could rapidly increase density cheaply. That's actually a good idea. We should actually consider that. Max, I think that's actually a good idea, and we should consider that, like allowing people to build granny flats more easily. I think that's worth thinking about. In Socialist Alternative Party, they are popular on council, kill development or large houses. Yeah, in Melbourne, they're disaster.
Extremely difficult unless there is some type of buy-in from everybody that there are circumstances that qualify as an emergency or an urgency that give you the political ability to do something like this. So, for instance, in the I-95 thing, you cite that as an example of where this type of like power, sort of centralized power to bypass this stuff, is effective, and it was very effective in that moment. But if you contemplate like the constituents and constituencies who would be for it versus against it, there may be people who are like, I got a store on Route 1.
Max says that was one of your housing. Max, the problem is running with the Citizens Party. You got to find you got to have a party that has more respectability. Late to the stream tonight. Sorry, Drew. Talk us through your iconography. Saint Gabriel. Yes, it's very cool, guys. I used my first month of YouTube paychecks to buy this beautiful stuff from the Panegyric Greek Festival, and this is Saint George, the Protector, slaying the dragon, and then you got this beautiful one of Jesus, and you got the archangels Gabriel and Michael, the protector angels, and they are now blessing our show. They're keeping us safe from the jihadists, the Nazis, the fascists who want to kill us, the communists as well. Abundance means not wanting to live in a third world country with constant blackouts. Yeah, true. Literally facts. Max says he'll probably run independent. I mean, independence probably run. Honestly, Max, independence probably better than Citizens Party.
And if 95, that bridge is down, I'm going to make a lot of money because people are going to drive by. But outside of that, there was an alignment where in the fact that you could essentially bypass these things in a state of an emergency. There was the political will to do that. There was the political will to do that in the context of the CHIPS Act and to revitalize industrialization. You had buy-in. And on some level, it feels like some of what you're talking about with the jettisoning of the everything bagel liberalism, maybe it's like, it's not what you're talking about jettisoning is not the poppy seeds or the garlic or whatever it is on top, but it's like maybe the salt inside or, the dough.
Well,
what the fuck's he talking about, dude? It just doesn't even make sense.
You have to be very connected to what you're trying to achieve. Like, I guess I would turn this question on you.
A person, is this Max Super from Morden? Yes, that is the Max Super from Morden.
Because I feel like we want to be, as you were saying earlier,
wanting to watch your debate on Christian nationalism tomorrow before or after church, but I'd love to know the TLDR of your case. Busy tonight while listening to this. Listen, that Christian nationalist guy, Malachi, he literally explicitly said that he wants a white Australia and he wants to kick out black people. And it's like, I just think that's like immoral. I think it's immoral to just like straight up say nobody can live in your country if they don't have the right skin color. I think that's wrong. I want to lower migration, but straight racial discrimination is wrong.
They're upstream. Do you think we can build enough affordable housing if the units cost $650,000 to $1 million to complete per unit? Just flat. Like, can we pay for that?
I would imagine not, depending on
so what should we do then? Like, what is your view of what is pushed? It doesn't cost that much to build market rate housing. So what is your view? If when you trigger government money, you often double the per square foot cost in some cases of the housing it builds, or when you trigger government money, they don't get things like high-speed rail done. Like, all I want to do here, man, I'm not here for like a big like left liberal moderate fight. I actually want the government to deliver things I think we both want it to deliver. I don't want to give people asthma, but I need to be able to build housing because homelessness is a fucking problem, and it is the worst problem for the people.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around this whole abundance thing. Sure, make stuff is better than less stuff. This isn't a new concept. It's unfortunately a new concept because every Western country, every English-speaking country over the past 30, 40 years has just been fucking suffocated with like NIMBY bullshit, where they've literally tried to make it impossible to build anything and just destroy all the economic growth in society and make everyone poor. The Vic Gov making granny flats easier, but still hard. I had an idea to put several granny flats on this place with a huge backyard. Council killed it. The idea was link it, launch, and community housing. Interesting.
Experiencing it, not for me. So what is your theory?
I mean, look,
how do you get this cost of construction down to speed up? There's got to be something here.
Well, it's obviously localized, right? I mean, I have a sense of like in New York, we do not allow developers to sit on land and wait for the market to catch.
This is so funny. Like, he asked Sam, what do we do to make it cheaper? And he just goes, stop land banking. And that's just like the classic leftist quote. Whenever you talk to them about housing, they just go, land banking. And they just won't consider anything else.
Like, all I want to do here, man, I'm not here for like a big like left liberal moderate fight. I actually want the government to deliver things I think we both want it to deliver. I don't want to give people asthma, but I need to be able to build housing because homelessness is a fucking problem, and it is the worst problem for the people experiencing it, not for me. So what is your theory?
I mean, look,
how do you get this cost of construction down to speed up? There's got to be something here.
Well, it's obviously localized, right? I mean, I have a sense of like in New York how it could be cheaper.
Okay, let's do
we do not.
Yeah, honestly, the degrowth movement is just so toxic. It's so bad for society.
Allow developers to sit on land and wait for the market to catch up to them. We do not allow homes to sit unoccupied without it being a cost on those people. I mean, there is a lot of excess housing and space in the city that is being held.
That's just a joke to be like, oh, the excess housing already exists. It literally doesn't. That's the problem, guys. It literally doesn't. We're not building enough.
In private hands.
I mean, yeah, Max, you're right. Land banking is a problem, but my problem with people like Sam Seder and Jordan Vanderlam is like they focus on land banking to the exclusion of every other aspect of the whole housing debate. Like they won't consider immigration, they won't consider regulation, they won't consider anything. It's just land banking. That's all they'll think about.
Okay,
so
great.
that they can
Let's
maximize their
say
profits.
we do all that, but we're talking here very specifically.
The reason they do that is because they want it to be a capitalist issue. They want to talk about this as only a capitalist issue, right?
Developers to sit on land and wait for the market to catch up to them. We do not allow homes to sit unoccupied without it being a cost on those people. I mean, there is a lot of excess housing and space in the city that is being held in private hands
okay,
so
great.
that they can maximize their profits.
Let's say we do all that, but we're talking here very specifically. New York City is going to have to build housing that is affordable. We know, like there are studies on this, you can read them, you can go talk to developers, like the reporting on this is like very straightforward. We know that when you trigger the public rules, it ends up being extremely, extremely expensive. We know that like in San Francisco where they would try to build a public toilet for almost $2 million, they do that here too. Why does it cost so much and why does it so often fail when government tries to achieve the things people want it to do?
I think property has been so commodified that there's such a profit incentive, such a money incentive to slow that roll that it creates a whole litany. There's an everything bagel
of projects that are past that point. Like I think that let me be really meta clear here on what I'm trying to do with you, because I think you keep wanting to pull it back to where we can let's totally premise corporations are terrible, they are bad, they're like they're your enemy. Hold on,
they have their
cases,
agenda
sure.
and we have ours.
Yes, there are cases where the government is building affordable housing on land that they own or they've already bought or they're funding somebody else to build it that is already nonprofit housing. This is just like, it's not being done for profit. We are not in a commodified system. We know that housing costs more than the commodified housing costs to build. It is fine to say that it costs more. This is a totally reasonable interpretation. It is because wealthy landowners and wealthy corporations have colluded, maybe with other figures, on rules that have made it cost more. But which of these are you going to pull apart, right? This is the trade-offs that we are trying to force people to confront in abundance. You have to go into this thing and say, this is not working. I need to make it cheaper, faster, more achievable. Like when you can't make the corporation your villain, what are you doing? Like how do you approach?
Well, is that a question of making well, first off, I think as a political matter, making the corporations a villain is going to be far more, you're going to have a far broader support.
It's just so like, it's just clown shit. Like he's mad because Ezra Klein's not talking about destroying all corporations.
Than making, environmental groups or people seeking equity in housing the villain.
And that's fine, but
then I would say,
problem here.
Well, and then I would say the problem again is that we have so greatly commodified housing. There is such a profit incentive to create these barriers. I know how they exist today. But the idea of unwinding it, you're just like, the whole book is about the idea that what was good intention 25 years ago, 40 years ago, has now brought us this problem. It seems to me that there's an attempt to restart that cycle.
I don't think that you can say, I really want to push you here. I don't think you can say the reason it costs more money and is so much more difficult and is so much slower to build nonprofit affordable housing than to build market rate housing is because we've over commodified housing. I just don't, or that Texas is better at building housing because they somehow decommodified housing compared to California.
Well, they have more space. They simply have
plenty of space. If you go to San Jose, man, there is plenty of space. It's strip malls and single family homes. It is one of the richest tracts of land in the whole country, in the whole world. It could be skyscrapers. It could be Shenzhen. It is strip malls and single family homes. We have plenty of space in California.
He smashed him here.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't speak to San Jose.
Like Silicon Valley is what I'm talking about. Like you go ride around where these fucking venture capital firms, man. I promise you will not leave that drive saying there's nowhere to build a 6-story apartment building. And do we have public transport there? Like how we would if we could build it. That was part of what high-speed rail is supposed to be doing, which is why I'm so rich.
And whose tax base is going to pay for that public transport and those buildings there? I mean, that's
our tax base. I was one of the taxpayers.
I mean,
I am saying that I don't think it's possible to say that the reason you can't build in like San Jose and you can in Texas is that we've decommodified in Texas. We just haven't.
Well, we have plenty of space in the desert too. But the point is how are we going to? I'm talking about the places where you guys specifically make the point that New York City, San Francisco, these places are where people should be living and creating. And from my perspective in New York, having lived here more or less for 30 some odd years, 35 years. This place got a lot more expensive, not because there were constraints on zoning, not because there was equity. There hasn't been this place got more expensive.
I'm not again. I'm pro equity. I believe what I'm doing will create a whole lot more equity because you need to make the affordable housing. But in the book, if you've listened to it, I have a whole section critiquing Michael Bloomberg for this whole concept that New York City should be a luxury good. This is a whole section of the book that it is an incrable mistake that a lot of Democrats made along the way to sort of get into this idea that cities are like a penthouse for the upper class.
Yes, and I would suggest. I mean, look, there was this just came out, a report by the Fed, UCLA, that specifically addressed the question of whether it was housing constraints. California Federal Reserve researchers found that constrained housing supply is relatively unimportant in explaining the differences in rising house prices among U.S. cities.
Have you read the debate on this report?
I haven't. But it said
gently,
higher
but it's
income growth
controversial.
predicts the same growth. Okay, well, it's controversial. I mean, I'm willing to accept that. Like I
Like
said,
on some
I'm
basic
not a
level,
housing
on
expert.
some basic level,
to
right? If
contrast-
you have enough, things follow supply and demand. If you have enough of something, if you have too much of something, the price of it is going to fall, right? They argue that higher incomes, because, and this again, like I think in a weird way we would agree.
Dude, like that's the thing. Sam City doesn't even want to try. He doesn't even want to fucking engage. He just wants everything to be so bad. Oh, it's actually exhausting, eh? He doesn't even make an argument.
Agree on this. Higher incomes are going to be a causal factor in restrictive zoning and building policies because people get higher incomes, they buy a house, that house becomes a major asset for them. And again, this is all in the book. The way they can protect the value of that asset is by making it impossible for other
100%.
people to live in near them. They are creating their own scarcity. And so
Yes.
again, when I hear this book is not about power, to me, this book is all about power.
Well, but I still can't get an answer as to what is the primary. If we were talking from a national perspective, right? I mean, across the country, this is going to be a message. You just visited the Senate caucus to talk about this. Derek was talking about there's a fight. It's happening right now. Our book is trying to win a certain intra-left coalitional fight about defining the future of liberalism in the Democratic Party. I mean, if this fight's going on and this is part of a movement, there's a lot of money behind it. I can't remember the organization, you probably know, just dropped $120 million citing the abundance movement. There's a lot of money behind this. What is the...
Lambros says hello from Cyprus. Hello, Lambros. Thanks for joining. It's very cool to have someone from Cyprus.
I know that there are granular problems in each of these different cities, but do you think if there is a villain, and I imagine that there's,
why does it have to be like, he needs a villain, dude? It's actually like pathological. It's so strange.
Good movement always needs a villain. What is the villain? Is it just we have overly restrictive zoning and
I think you and I probably actually disagree that good movements are built on clear villains. But let me try to give you a good answer to this question. We didn't think the intra-left argument was with you. Just to be really blunt about it. I thought the neo-Brandeisians, etc.
I don't know if I'm necessarily a neo-Brandeisian, but okay.
You may not be. But they've been very critical of it. We thought the intra-left argument had to do much more with a debate that is very live. Again, it's a sort of New Deal, New Left divide to us between is the right future organizing government to organize the resources of society to create this kind of plenitude of housing, of energy, of infrastructure, these things that we want, of innovation, which is a big part of the book? Or is it more of a small is beautiful future? Is it more degrowth inflected? Is it more that we actually build too much already? Is it that there isn't enough meaning in things? In a weird way, Donald Trump has begun to really embody this other side when he comes out and he says, maybe the kids have too many dolls, right? You got 30 dolls, maybe you only need 2. You got 30 pencils, maybe you only need 5. So our view was not that the sort of fight that was live here was with people who worry about corporate power. It's that if you come from the places I come from, or frankly that you live in now and I live in now, you see a lot of Democrats who show up at the planning meeting and don't want any affordable housing because they don't want it to change their housing values. Yeah. You see a lot of people using all sorts of tools of delay in all sorts of directions to stop things from happening. And to us, like I think one of the really profound fights is, do you think delay as a omnipresent tool of governance is a virtue, or do you think speed is more of a virtue? And if you think speed is a virtue, as I do, I think we should deliver government services much faster. Then what sort of moves are you willing to make that true?
I'm confused. You were surprised that your fight your fight was with the neo-Brandeisians. Who did you think? Did you think the fight was like you thought?
There's a big schism in the environmental movement and the environmental community between the side that thinks we need to build our way towards decarbonization and the side that is much more about worrying that when we build things, we're going to change environments. We're using things like the California Environmental Quality Act or National Environmental Policy Act to stop things that might.
What would their movement? I'm trying to figure out who you're talking about. Like degrowthers?
If you follow or report on any part of the decarbonization fight, you will find that the entire architecture of environmental policy we have is being mobilized against it in order to sue it out of existence, sometimes by moneyed interests. But there was a point in time when like a chapter of the Sunrise Movement.
We need Chris back on the show. The Liberals winning the next election with Susan Lane.
There is a lot of conflict among people who see themselves as liberals committed to these goals, etc., on whether building is good or bad. I think. Yeah,
good question. Good point by Dodo. Who cares if people make money and profit if they make people's lives better? If you fix a problem, you should get paid for it. The left is always the need a villain to make sense of the world. I mean, it is just true in the sense that like if somebody can make profit while building housing so that people aren't on the streets, that's a good thing in my books, right? Isn't that Ezra Klein? No, that's Ezra Klein against Sam Ceder. Blessings by Kevin Lyman. Thanks, man. Thanks, Kevin, for joining. People like Sam Ceder is what caused Elon Musk misguided Dodo department. Yeah, kind of.
Think that if you're looking very skeptically, but what do you think NIMBYs are?
Well, I think NIMBYs for the most part are wealthy people.
Right, that's a big part of the fight we thought we were about to have.
The Kennedys, yes. Stop the windmills.
So now you're making my argument for me. Come on, do it. Give it to me.
No. But when I look at the common strain through those people and their ability to actually impact policy, I see money.
Okay, but so you look at one strain, and I probably have a broader set. So let me give
What's
you one.
broader than that?
Let me give you one where we will disagree.
Wait, what is broader than that?
Because it's not just the Kennedys. It's not just the people.
No, I know it's not just the Kennedys, but I'm talking wherever those NIMBYs succeed. I'm willing to bet that the relationship between how much money they have and the YIMBYs have, the NIMBYs far more often than not will have more money. I mean, this is like, I know you know the research on this. Like when these are contested, there's no doubt in my mind that we have regulations but it's to protect people's assets and people who have assets versus people who don't have assets. And so like that is I don't know how you generalize it more than that.
So I think on the NIMBY side, we largely agree, right? And so when I say that we thought there were different obvious sources of opposition, that was a big one. And again, as you know, there's a whole section of the book about how destructive it has been to turn housing into the central asset class and wealth engine for the middle to upper middle class, right? It's not true for the very wealthy, but that's I think people know. But here's a place where we probably disagree. In California, where I'm more familiar with politics, the California Environmental Quality Act, which
Sam Seder and the people like him are the reason why Democrats lose. Like literally facts.
I think most people agree has overgrown its.
Yeah, Max, I agree. He's right that the NIMBYs are usually rich, but like it's just so simplistic to be like this is a fight to destroy capitalism or whatever.
Initial design, and
I just think it is simplistic to be like the problem is money. The problem is that we want to use money to do better things in society.
But here's a place where we probably disagree. In California, where I'm more familiar with politics, the California Environmental Quality Act, which I think most people agree has overgrown its initial design and is being used to do things like try to stop UC Berkeley from expanding dormitoriums because more students are environmental nuisance. One thing that really defends it is that there's a coalition of unions that use CEQA to sue development in order to get unrelated labor standards concessions. And to me, that is a misuse of power. I am pro stronger labor standards. I am not pro radically expanding how much you can delay every single project in order to get concessions that were not in the initial architecture.
Sam Seder also said that he would rather homeless people not have housing if it was moldy, which is insane. When did he say that? That's insane. Yeah, it's better to sleep on the street. I'm just saying that they're both making good points, as well as Sam making some bad arguments. I mean, I think Sam overall is making pretty bad arguments here.
Or vision of that bill. So yes, there is power. The NIMBYs are power. The NIMBYs are related to money, but power is also misused by groups I feel more allied with. And
that's true. I agree with Ezra Klein. Part of the problem is that there are groups that have money and they're liberal and they're not using it in the right way.
The utility of focusing on blue states for me.
We had a
Have you read Abundance yet? I've read about half of it.
Problem in the context of Medicare for all. In that fight. I mean, there's I think you can find that all across a ton of different issues, and you'll have unions on different sides of the same issue because they're
carpenters and builder trades are very different in California.
But I think we both agree that the net value of a strong union movement is a positive, and actually like a lot of problems we have in terms of across the board.
We got 28 people watching live now, guys. Please leave a subscribe to the channel, and leave a like on the video. The more likes on the video, the more people YouTube will show it to. Therefore, we can grow more. So please, guys, if you're watching, you're enjoying the debate, the discussion, the liveliness of it all, please leave a like and subscribe.
Are a function of the deunionization of the country. So there's no doubt, like we can find specific instances. And I sort of feel like that's, I think, part of what I have as a critique of the book. There are particular instances, but broadly speaking, when we're talking about coalitional politics, which is definitionally democratic politics, to move forward and to have power and to actually get things done, it seems to me you can't do it.
What do you think of Richard Dennis? Some of his arguments are basic. I remember reading his book Affluenza when Howard was a PM. He was making some good points there. I don't think I've any. I think I've got some of his books, but I don't think I've read any of them yet, Max.
By diminishing the coalition.
So there we genuinely disagree.
Yes.
Like that is truly like I want to.
And to have
let me hear this.
And I sort of feel like that's, I think, part of what I have as a critique of the book. There are particular instances, but broadly speaking, when we're talking about coalitional politics, which is definitionally democratic politics, to move forward and to have power and to actually get things done, it seems to me you can't do it by diminishing the coalition.
So there we genuinely disagree.
Yes.
So he's just saying, don't ever criticize left-wing NIMBYs.
Like that is truly like I always want to be very honest about points of disagreement. There are places where I think we're actually aligned, and here I think Democrats have become way over coalitional, and I think it is a huge problem that we are not delivering.
Which parts of the coalition do you think should be jettisoned?
I don't ever talk about in terms of jettisoning.
Richard Dennis is a great communicator. However, in communicating to a general audience, some of his nuance can be lost.
Because I don't think that's how coalitions work. I think they just change issue to issue. But I do not think we should have such a level of proceduralism that forces this many giveaways to this many interests in every process. And again, to use an example where I think we would probably be
Can you
more
be specific about the interests? Are there interests that go across the board? I mean, that's what I keep trying to get at. Is that like everything is specific?
You keep trying. I think my virtue is specificity, and your critique of me is I'm overly specific. Mine of you is overly general.
I'm saying like you're specific about the granular instances, but you say we need to have less interest. And I want to know who those interests are that we need to have less of.
I want to have. Let me go back to the Medicare example for a minute because you brought that up, and I think it's a good one. We passed Medicare, sent out those cards in a year. Well, the Biden administration did two things I think we both probably liked, which is prescription drug negotiations and limiting out-of-pocket lifetime caps, or having lifetime caps for out-of-pocket costs. It took them 3 to 4 years to move it through a regulatory process that we have expanded with things like notice and comment periods and more opportunities for judicial review that can be utilized by, in this case, pharmaceutical companies, but others as well, to kind of slow everything down and force a lot of concession. I want to break that process and make it much more under agency discretion what they do and make it harder to challenge. In that case, that's going to hurt pharmaceutical companies, right? So I think that you and I would like it. In the California housing case, I want to make housing construction much closer to by right? I want you to have the right to build the housing you want to build, assuming it conforms to basic standards. This is what we've done in California for ADUs. It worked really, really well. A lot of people will be mad about that. NIMBYs, certain unions, etc. I would like to make it easier to build modular housing. Again, different people will be mad at that. I don't have one answer for you on who I'm trying to screw over because I'm not trying to screw anybody over. What I'm trying to do is focus liberal governance on the outcomes it is promising people and get people to confront why we are failing to deliver them. If you end up with a different answer than me, that's great. But that should be a very granular confrontation with why high-speed rail didn't happen, why the Second Avenue subway is so fucking expensive, why we're not building enough housing. I don't believe you can do this in generalities in the way that I think a lot of people want to. I think that it requires a lot of confrontation with the individual failures we see and then trying to figure out, okay, do things rhyme across these failures? Is there a level of government that should have the authority that currently does it?
Honestly, I think Ezra Klein is a really smart, well-read intellectual. I honestly am very impressed by him.
That kind of thing.
All right. I've held you really long, and so I want to, but let me just, So what is then the political, like, what do we organize around as a political movement? If it is in these various instances.
I know. We should organize around, as a political movement, building more housing. How's that, Sam Seder? What do you guys reckon of that? I think it's a good idea. Let's organize around the idea of doing more good things. Question, is there anything wrong with that? Interesting.
People are going to get situationally marginalized in the process, right? I mean, or however gently you want to say, your interests here, we're going to ignore in these specific cases. What is the political message that's going to resonate and get these different factions of the Democratic Party on board with this as a broad message?
I think every national politician who succeeds tends to be reformist and highly critical of the era of their party that came right before them. Bill Clinton was very critical of the Democratic Party preceding him, sort of New Democrat, etc. Barack Obama was extremely critical of both the way money acted in politics prior to him. You might disagree about his actual administration, and then the Iraq War. Donald Trump was extremely critical of the pre-Donald Trump Republican Party. I think being honest with people that you have noticed the same failures on your side that they have is a very potent politics. Now, I am not a politician. I don't have to win elections. I have a freedom to say things that I think are true that maybe Pete Buttigieg and Wes Moore and Gretchen Whitmer and whoever don't. So I don't necessarily come here telling you I know how to win elections. I don't think you should believe me or really anybody else who doesn't routinely.
No, we need to mobilize around money bad. Well said, Saviourly. Great comment.
Win elections if they tell you that. But the idea
Ezra is definitely not on the right. He's arguing that the government should have the capacity to do more for the common good. Yeah, exactly. Ezra is a New Deal style liberal, and I like that. I like the old New Deal style liberalism when it comes to delivering for the people of the country.
idea that pointing out, yeah, we fucked up. Yeah, things are moving too slow. Yeah, you don't feel the government is spending your money well. I thought it was incredibly telling that when the New York Times polled this just a couple weeks ago, what you found when you polled people, like, is government inefficient? +18. Is Doge a good idea? +6. Is Doge doing a good job? Minus some significant number. Is Elon Musk doing a good job? Like -18 or 20. People believe, often correctly, that government doesn't deliver for them, that it's not spending their money well, that they're not getting what they want out of it. And I think going to them in the first order and saying, yeah, I am going to be relentlessly focused on making sure the roads I promised to fix for you actually get fucking fixed this time. We are actually going to build. We learned something about California high-speed rail, and the next time we do one of these big projects, here's what we learned, and here's how we are going to make it work. Look, I could be wrong. I think it's
which of those of the 3 Democratic presidencies that we've lived under would you rate the highest in terms of your policy set in terms of accomplishing it?
Obama, but there's things you need to learn from that one too.
And that,
if Democrats listen to Ezra, it would be like Harry Truman or FDR days. They would dominate. I agree, Max, and that's the type of left-wing politics I like. Delivering housing, infrastructure, education, healthcare to the people. That's what I like. That's what I like.
Function of the ACA.
Function of the ACA.
If the Democrats had more Ezra, less Sam and Hassan, they never lose. Yeah, absolutely done it. That's exactly how I see it.
I think they got a lot done that was very valuable, but I will always say that part of my thinking goes back to that era, because you go back to the 2009 stimulus bill, and what does it promise? Where it's big headline projects that are going to be the reinvestment side. It's high-speed rail, it's a national set of interoperable health records, and it's a national smart grid, and we are 0 for 3.
I would also argue they screwed up on the housing crisis immensely. And under Obama, we lost, what was it, 1,000 statewide the Democrats, which is why I think we had such a poor bench over in the following 10 years. Some comptroller loses there.
Sam has spent his career defending Social Security and the outcomes of FDR's time in office. He's a New Deal Democrat law. Yeah, but he's just trying to make it more difficult to like build things, and that's where he's kind of like a degrowther type mindset. And I don't think the degrowthers should be part of the coalition. It's the social contract. It's not rocket science. I want my council to make sure my bins are done and rubbish removed from the streets. Not welcome to country and changing council names and street names because 2000. Yeah, okay, interesting. Do you think anyone could effectively communicate wonky policy to the general public? It's difficult, but I think Ezra Klein's doing pretty well as a communicator right now. And obviously he's speaking to like a kind of more educated audience, but I think he's doing pretty well.
Their job because of the wave. I'm not convinced that we didn't get Trump as a function of Obama.
I think a full debate between us on Obama should be
a different day. But Ezra, I really appreciate you taking the time. And we will link to Abundance and of course your podcast. Huge podcast, and the New York Times is also a well-known newspaper.
I've heard of it. Yeah, a strong Northeast regional. Thank you, Sam. I enjoyed it.
All right, thanks, Ezra.
Ezra is right that he has the privilege to communicate to an engaged audience. Yeah, look, and it's kind of amazing the influence Ezra Klein has. Like Ezra Klein is probably the most influential public intellectual on the left in America right now, which is a good thing, I think. Like compared to like fucking Hassan Piker. Oh my God, Ezra Klein's like infinitely more fucking productive than Hassan Piker. Whatever Hassan Piker's fucking doing, just ranting on stream and just fucking supporting Hamas and Hezbollah and just stupid shit. Isn't Sam's position to just build more public housing in the aggregate? Sam's position on money is that they have a vested interest to keep supply tight. Yes, but Ezra Klein makes the following point. He says, how do we build the supply? How do we build the amount of public housing required when public housing is so much more difficult to build and much more expensive than market priced housing in California? In California, he points out it's more expensive to build public housing than it is to build normal housing for the market. And that's a huge disaster. That is literally a fucking disaster. So my thing is, I also agree, let's build more public housing. But that's a really good point that Ezra Klein points out. In California, it's literally more expensive to build public housing than it is to build normal housing. And what a disaster that is. That's a full disaster. And Sam Seder doesn't have a response to that. Sam Seder is just like, oh, well, the problem is the commodification of housing. It's like, and Ezra Klein points out, but in these cases, it's non-commodified housing. It's literally public housing built by the government on public land. They own everything, and it's still more expensive. Sebastian, easy to communicate. Just break it down in simple terms. Judge us on delivering outcomes. True. That's true.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick break, head into the fun half of the program wherein we will have fun.
What's that?
I feel like we could have done that for a little.
Honestly, seriously, Sam Seder got smashed there. Ezra Klein smashed him. I mean, can anybody doubt that? I can't see how anybody could say that Sam Seder made any really good points at all. He just was basically saying, money bad. That's what the entire policy, that's what the entirety of democratic politics should be. Left-wing politics should be money bad. And it's like, no, dude, we've actually got to deliver outcomes to people. We've actually got to try and build things. You can't just say money bad. That's not enough. That's not a political program to say money bad, billionaires bad. That's not enough of a political program. You actually have to try and deliver things for people. You actually have to try and deliver housing, education, healthcare. You actually have to deliver these things. You can't just say money bad, billionaires bad. That's not a fucking political program. Literally not a political program. You actually have to try to deliver things. I think Sam met his match in that debate, but he also admitted it was fun and appreciated the substance of the debate. I mean, yeah, look, at least he had a debate. At least he actually talked about it. I mean, it was an interesting discussion. I think Ezra Klein did elucidate quite a few major points where Sam Seder just doesn't really have a clue. Like, he's just not thinking straight. Drew, you need to tweet about sending Phidias to the El Salvadorian Gulag. Very, very interesting, mate. A lot of people are saying that, I hear. A lot of people are saying that. I made my drone strike Phidias petition and they took it down. It's so unfair. It's so unfair. Guys, does anybody have any questions or anything that I can comment to the audience? I'm interested. It was an interesting discussion. It was an interesting debate. I think Ezra Klein's like carries the day by far. I think Ezra Klein smashed him in that. I just don't think Sam Seder has like an actual like realistic political program. You can't just say billionaires bad, money bad. Peter, it's a bad debate strategy to choose that issue to fight over in that way with that angle. Yeah, it's true. I think this is a good comment by Sarah. I think if you're a tanky social type, it looked like Ezra was a right winger because Sam kept making the enemy money and Ezra disagreed. That alone is enough to paint him as right wing. Yeah, they're trying to paint him as right wing, but this is the thing. Like, he's not right wing. He's literally saying, I want to build up state capacity to deliver New Deal style public projects. That's what Ezra wants. I think, again, the only way that they diverge is Ezra's not just sitting there bashing billionaires going like, yeah, the entirety of the problem is just billionaires existing, which is, that's not a political program. It's literally not a political program. It's not realistic. Sebastian, I joined late. Did Sam disagree with any of the issues raised? Or was it just the absence of the populist framing? Yeah, that's true. I think he literally just, I'm not even sure if he really had a proper disagreement at any point. I think he just was basically saying it's not framed properly in populist economic left language. And then the other part, I think he just didn't have any actual response to the fact that it's more expensive to build public housing in California than it is to build market housing in California. I don't think Sam Seder even had a response to that. And that in itself is disastrous. You have to have a fucking response on that. Snazzy Scotsman, unrelated question. Favorite Australian Prime Minister of all time? Good question. Maybe it'd have to be probably Curtin or Chifley, I think. Maybe John Curtin. I'd say John Curtin, maybe. I'd say John Curtin's probably my favorite Prime Minister in Australian history. You know, he helped Australia get through World War II. It's a massive achievement. Max, if the Democratic Alliance ran at the next state election, what would be your top 5 policies to fix housing? If you convince me, maybe I'll run for you. Okay, I'm not going to run at the next state election. Democratic Alliance isn't coming back. But look, I would have more public housing, like a whole range of things. I would try and I actually agree with Deng Xiaoping where he said, you know, it doesn't matter whether a cat is black or white as long as it catches mice. So seriously, I would have just a range of policies addressing both the supply and the demand side of the equation. So yes, YIMBY policies, making it easier to build new housing, increasing some density, that sort of thing. 2, reducing demand by, you know, reducing migration from the historically high levels that we have right now. 3, we would have, you know, more public housing as well. I think there's also a role for government in this to build public housing. What else? I mean, 4, I think you should also consider, you know, taxing idle housing that's not being put into the market, that's just sitting empty. I think that should be taxed. Maybe tax empty land to sort of Georgia's type position where you tax empty land to try and encourage them to improve upon it or at least sell it so that it can be developed. And then also, I think we'd also need to talk about maybe, you know, make it much more difficult for foreign nationals to sort of just gamble in the Australian housing market and treat it just as like, you know, an offshore, you know, asset that they can just, you know, hide their money in. I think so. All these different issues, you know, there's so many different responses. It's reducing supply, but also reducing demand while also boosting supply. You need to look at both sides of the equation. We'll tax you till you're poor. How Norway's Labour-style wealth tax sparked $84 billion disaster. Drew, can you do this topic sometime? I mean, sure. What is that a video or something, Dodo? Do you believe Australia should have a great expansion westward, free or subsidized land for those who want to settle and greenify the interior? I mean, I'd love that, but I just don't think, I'm not sure if it's possible to greenify the interior, unfortunately. Because I've looked into this and I've dreamt the dream of great inland seas within the interior of Australia. And unfortunately, it seems that you would just basically have these kind of like brackish saltwater lagoons that just wouldn't really do anything other than breed mosquitoes. It's a sad thing. I wish we could build this beautiful inland sea in Australia and have the greenification of the interior. But I think the sad reality is if we tried to actually build these grand canals and everything, you would kind of probably just have like brackish saltwater lagoons that attract mosquitoes and have just massive mosquito breeding grounds, which is fucking sad. It's sad for me as a great dreamer who would love to greenify the Australian continent. It's a sad thing. Sebastian says he's a Keating stan. Interesting. I mean, Keating before he became a China shill. Sam Seder isn't really a commie tanky. There's much that makes this debate kind of strange and unproductive from his perspective. Yeah. See, I don't think Sam Seder is a commie tanky. I just think he's like a left-wing populist, right? And I don't think Ezra Klein is a left-wing populist. Ezra Klein's like a left-wing technocrat, and that's a difference. There's a difference between the technocrats and the populists. You know what's funny? I think I've got like a kind of populist communication style, but my actual interests are in technocratic outcomes. So it's interesting. I don't know. I feel like I'm in a bit of a weird, strange position. Negative gearing reforms. Yeah, I think there should be negative gearing reforms. You're right, Max. I think that we should have negative gearing reforms. Super funds. And yeah, I do think it'd be good to try put more super funds into building up Australian infrastructure. Krub says support Drew. Thank you, Krub. I appreciate it. Make Far North Queensland independent. Figure out a way to increase immigration there. News article about Labor plan to tax unrealized gains. Yeah, look, I don't think taxing unrealized gains is unproductive because it's money that exists really on paper. How do you tax money that just exists on paper? You're going to have to encourage people to divest from the stock market, make some sales. It could be difficult. We already can't build infrastructure for the current sprawl. I mean, that is a good point by Travis. How do you make house prices cheaper? Should we facilitate an orderly write-down of bank loans and a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures? The banks have created a lot of the problem and lax regulations. I don't know if that's the right thing, Max, because I don't know if you go full economic populist and like just go like we're just going to nationalize everybody's mortgage. That's a lot of bad debt that the government has to underwrite. You know, that's a fucking scary thing. Like, if you're talking about writing down all the bank loans and moratorium and eviction and stuff like that, it's almost like you're talking about like a nationalization of everybody's mortgage. And I don't know if that's like the right thing because there's a lot of bad debt out there. Biodome the interior. So true. We bad boo. We can get a whole bunch of immigrants with shovels and dig the canals for citizenship. Good idea, Dodo. But I think the problem unfortunately the problem is that you would probably just have salt water. You just have salt water. It wouldn't really lead to the greenification of the interior. I think the risk would be you just have massive mosquito breeding grounds, which would be a fucking disaster. Just need decent and diverse permaculture inland so it doesn't just become a bog. I mean, yeah, exactly. You don't want it to just be a bog. Max says it only applies to people with super balances over 3 million. Do you agree taxing unrealized gains, negative effects mitigated by focusing on super, usually highly liquid assets? I reckon it aligns super with its original intention. Look, yeah. I mean, super, yeah. I mean, it's a lot easier to do this with super than than a wealth tax, for example. Because I think the problem is a lot of countries that have tried to put in place wealth taxes in the past, it hasn't worked. I think that was the experience in France, and that was the experience in a lot of European countries. They would try and put in these wealth taxes, but it's very hard when you're dealing with illiquid assets. W says, we made the Greeks do that with Snowy Dam 1. That's pretty funny. The people that pay the most taxes are now moving their money out of Australia. Super funds is Australia's biggest investment vehicle. It's a huge future loss. Mosquitoes are a source of protein. Eat bugs and be happy. So true, Sebastian. Drew, nuclear power plant with desalination plant and we get fresh water. I mean, true, but the amount of water you'd have to desalinify would just be immense. Like, we're talking about like a fucking inland ocean, right? I don't know if we can do this with like a couple nuclear power plants. And again, I would love to do it. I love these big dreaming. I love nation building projects. I love that big dreaming vision. But there's been some big nation building projects that Australia has, gone all in on in the past that have been disastrous. There was one in particular, I think, an attempt to sort of like build a massive canal out near like the Pilbara in Western Australia. That was just like we just lost 90% of the national infrastructure investment in that, in terms of the long-term outcome economically. And so you need to make sure that these national investments actually are productive and actually make sense, right? We have the powers to do this under Section 36 of the Reserve Bank Act. Listen, guys, I might call it a day today. I mean, it's been an interesting discussion. It's been an interesting debate. Actually interesting. It was a bit more intellectual, talking policy. It was good stuff. Drew, get immigrants with a shovel to build it for citizenship. Okay, Dodo, good stuff. I want to just quickly say to everybody, thank you for tuning in. Dodo, thank you for tuning in. Max Hooper, I appreciate your comments, Max. It was interesting. MW, thank you. Sebastian, thank you. Week Aber. Russia announced that if Ukraine won't leave 5 of its regions, ceasefire would be impossible. Do you think they genuinely want peace, or it's just another diplomatic game? Russia doesn't want peace. They want to keep the war going on forever. That's a big problem. America has to put pressure on Russia. Otherwise, they're just going to keep it going forever. Kevin, thank you. Sam Freedom, thank you. Lambros from Cyprus, thank you. Snazzy Saltzman, thank you. Everybody who's tuned in, I appreciate it a lot, guys. I just saw a video of China building a bridge for ships to go through a mountain range. If the rest of the world, we can't figure out housing, it's so sad. Look, the problem is as well, though, like China does a lot of national infrastructure projects that are like literally just disastrous in terms of the economic, like return on investment. So sometimes like you can build these massive, like, you know, you can make a canal through a mountain range. It doesn't mean that it's actually like going to make you money. Sometimes it's actually just like a massive sink in investment. So you have to try and make sure that it's actually a productive investment. Because, you know, you could just, I mean, theoretically, guys, you could boost GDP by just literally sending everybody out into this countryside and just digging ditches and then just filling the ditches in right after you dig them, right? Like, not all GDP growth is productive. You have to actually make sure it's productive GDP growth. And that's part of China's problem. That's why they've got this vast debt overhang, because sometimes their GDP growth has not necessarily been productive GDP growth. Saviourly as well. Thank you, Saviourly. Drew, the picture you posted of the setup has a nice angle for future reference. Yeah, thank you, bro. Thank you. Good stream. Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. Don't forget your catchphrase. The Fortress of Righteousness is building, guys. The Fortress of Righteousness. If you were watching, please leave a like and subscribe. I appreciate it. Thank you, Petter. Thank you so much. It's really cool to have you here from Sweden. You had some great comments. Thank you so much. Hopefully you stream more often. Yeah, dude, I'm doing it every day. I've streamed every day for 34 days now. I'm going to do it every day for 100 days. Ending catchphrase is welcome. The ending catchphrase, we're building up a fortress of righteousness here, guys. Drew, do your classic outro. Thank you, guys. God bless you all. Stay humble. And remember to build up the fortress of righteousness. Share the stream around. Share the stream around. Share around my YouTube channel. Guys, if you support it, share the YouTube channel around. Help me get to more people. We need to get to 8,500 subscribers. We're very close now. Yeah, Sebastian, broken window fallacy. That's what I was talking about. Productivity in Chinese infrastructure construction has massively increased. In the West, we are going backwards at a rapid rate. They're building quality infrastructure we could only dream of. Look, Max, I will say they do have a lot of amazing infrastructure investment, of course. I do agree with you. I'm just saying, like, obviously over the years, there's been stuff like the ghost cities, and that has caused a massive debt overhang in China. But yeah, no. Look, right now they seem to be doing pretty well, which is tough. It's tough for us. Where's your Discord? My Discord, I will quickly post it in the comments, guys. Hang on. I'm just going to post the Discord link, guys. That's the Discord link, guys. Discord. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can just copy that Discord link and you can join the Discord. And I'm going to try to do call-ins from the Discord in future. So I would really, I'd recommend everybody, yeah, go to the Discord. Those cities will be full in 10 years. We'll see, Max. But look, I do agree that right now China is doing better. It's a hard thing for me to say, but unfortunately, it seems that China is potentially doing better than some Western countries right now, like America. It's a very sad time to be somebody who believes in Western democracy and freedom. It's a very sad time. But thank you, guys. God bless you all. Stay humble. Share the stream around. Share the YouTube video. Share the channel around. Help us reach more people. I appreciate you all. Thank you, guys. And have a good day. Thank you all. God bless.